everyone. So apparently I got cut off from my last video. So we are on coronavirus, part 2. All right. So where was I? So we were talking about the difference between the morphology of a cell versus a virus. And when I say morphology, I mean like structure. So how do they differ? You probably remember cells from 7th grade. And if you don't, here's a little overview. So you have your plasma membrane right here, also known as your cell membrane. Stuff inside cytoplasm. The nucleus. This is where your genetic material is housed, your DNA. In the macromolecule video, I'll talk about nucleic acids. And then you have this stuff on the side. So what happens, your DNA is like the instructions for your body. It determines everything about you. And what happens is these messengers go into the nucleus. They read the DNA. The DNA doesn't go anywhere. It stays right there because it's protected there. There's messengers that go in there, read the information that's encoded in the DNA sequence. They leave out of the nucleus and they go into the ER, the stuff that's attached to it, rough ER and smooth ER. So they go through here, and then after they live there, they go to the ribosomes. And if you remember, the ribosomes are like these little studded, like ball, like dots things. These are where proteins are made. You may not remember ribosomes. They're small, and I think sometimes they get overlooked, but they're very important. And proteins are kind of like the things that do the job in a cell, okay? And endosomes I put on here as well, because when we talk about coronavirus, it's important, okay? So when I first saw a picture of the coronavirus, I was very confused because when we learned about viruses in school, I always saw something that looked like this. Okay. This is what they typically show when they show a virus. The genetic material, either DNA or RNA, is inside here. This thing is not a cell membrane. It's called a capsid. I believe it's made out of carbohydrates, but I don't remember. This is a capsid. This part right here is called the tail. And these things right here are called the tail fibers, or I just call them the feet. But they are what attaches the virus to the outside of the cell. Coronavirus, however, when I saw a picture of it, it looked like this. It looked like a round ball with these like suction cups on the outside. Okay, kind of like that. I have this dog toy here. Kind of looks like this dog toy, right? So I was like, what is this? It's a different family of virus. Coronavirus is actually a family of virus. And SARS-CoV-2 is the exact virus that we're dealing with now. So coronavirus is actually a family of different viruses. This virus is a type of coronavirus. There have been others, and they have been problematic. And I will tell you why later. But this one, it has that spiky ball. And what I didn't realize at first is that it's actually, this capsid part is inside of the spiky ball. And it's like enveloped. It's like a membrane that's around it. And it's still there, though. It's still a virus. It's got its capsid. It's got its DNA material. And it uses these feet as its attachment points for the cell. So what exactly does it do to the cell? If I were to draw a picture of the cell, I'm going to zoom in on it. Okay, so I'm going to draw the nucleus. And I'm going to draw the membrane. Okay, I'm going to kind of zoom in on it. And actually the membrane, we always kind of draw it like this, but it's actually double. It's a double membrane. like that. And it is called a phospholipid bilayer. So inside this, there's actually like 2 different layers. I'm not going to go into like a whole lot of detail on that, but it's a fatty layer. There's like hydrophobic ends and hydrophilic ends, and like it forms this membrane for your cell. Okay, it separates it from the outside. That's the important part. And there's also all this stuff attached to the membrane. Proteins. Proteins are really important. When we think of proteins, we think about like building muscle or like protein powder shakes for working out or something. Proteins, which is what protein powder shakes do, is they give you protein, but proteins basically perform functions in cells, all kinds of functions. So not just making you strong, but basically just helping your body operate on a regular basis. So these proteins kind of act like these like ports or docks to the inside and outside of a cell. They control what comes in and out. So they're very important. And the cell membrane does that as well. So there's also other things on the cell membrane. There's like lipids and carbohydrates, and some of the proteins are inside, some are outside, and it's just a bunch of whole stuff going on. Okay. So then coronavirus shows up and he just messes everything up. So coronavirus comes in here. And when coronavirus comes in, the cell membrane folds in like so. Okay. And it envelops this coronavirus. Here's where the endosome comes in. Did I say lysosome earlier? I meant endosome. So this endosome comes here. And the endosome's job is basically to transport things where they need to go. Okay? So this endosome comes into contact with the coronavirus that's been enveloped by the membrane. The coronavirus is very tricky because when it comes into contact with the endosome, what happens is that it will fuse with the endosome. So it starts out like this, and the endosome's like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing here? Are you supposed to be here? What are you doing? Where do you need to go?" And the coronavirus tricks it, and what happens is it fuses with the membrane of the endosome. Okay, it envelops it. It kind of becomes one with it. And then when it does that, the RNA that's in the coronavirus gets released into the cell. Like so. Bloop. And when it does that, it's going to go to the nucleus. Okay? And when it gets to the nucleus, what's going to happen is that genetic material that goes to the nucleus is going to get read as if it's the same genetic material as our cells. So what it is, it's a hijacker. You've ever heard of the Battle of Troy, where they build a Trojan horse, and the Greek mythology where they fool the other army into taking them in, and when they do, they storm out and they win the battle. They've compared coronavirus to like a Trojan horse. So it comes in seemingly innocent, tricks them into inviting them in, and when it does so, it makes your cells produce proteins for it, because it can't make its own proteins. It doesn't have ribosomes. So but what it does is it basically turns your cell into a virus making factory. Some general virus facts that I want to just cover real quick. We don't know if viruses evolved before cells or after. Okay, that's kind of in debate. There are more viruses on Earth than there are stars in the universe. And if you have me for science class, we talk about how many stars there are. A bunch. Tens of millions of viruses can fit on the head of a pin. It's a lot. Coronavirus is 0.2 to 0.5 microns. That's the size. And the N95 masks that they recommend that health professionals wear are 0.3 microns. So they're not perfect. Even the best mask that we have the virus might be too small and it might get through the mask. But it would be like saying, like, yeah, you and your friends can fit through a door, but if all 10 of you run in through the door at once, are you all going to get through the door? No. So is it perfect? No. But yeah, it's better than nothing. Viruses do not grow or respond to stimulus, which is another reason that they are not considered living. It's just some general information on viruses. SARS-CoV-2 is the coronavirus that we're dealing with now. Okay, SARS-CoV-2 is one type of coronavirus. Others include regular SARS and MERS, which they started in other places. Coronavirus is a family of viruses that is problematic. One of the reasons it's problematic is because it can mutate or recombine their RNA to jump between species, different living things. So when I read on CDC's website that if you contract coronavirus, you're supposed to stay away from animals. And they haven't specifically said this, but because they are able to mutate so readily and jump between species, they're able to recombine with other viruses that they come into contact with a host cell. So the fear is that they could jump to another species, like your dog or your cat, hypothetically, and then mutate into another whole different kind of virus. Hopefully that never becomes the case. But there are some coronaviruses that are found in other species that haven't jumped to humans yet. So it's all really conjecture. But the coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2 that we have right now, does not affect children the same way as it affects adults, which is unusual. They think the reason for this is due to immune response. So basically our bodies, anything past children or teenagers or so, the immune response overreacts, it freaks out. So when it sees that something is wrong, they have something called a cytokine storm. So your immune cells produce cytokines, and these cytokines go, and it overreacts to the point where it can basically, if you have any kind of underlying health conditions or heart conditions, then it can complicate that, and your body just gets overwhelmed. I showed you my poison ivy rash. It's not the poison ivy that's the issue. It's your body's response to it. Just like if you're allergic to something. So like it's not that, peanut butter is deadly. It's that some people's bodies react to peanut butter in a way that, it can be dangerous, even deadly. So, not that anyone's really allergic. It's not the same thing. You're not allergic to coronavirus, and it doesn't depend on the person whether or not your body responds. It seems to be that adults' immune response to coronavirus is basically your immune system getting carried away. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, then you are welcome to comment below, and I hope to return. Thank you.